It's amazing to me how AI has gone from, science fiction to like actually impacting so many different fields.
Yeah.
And for this deep dive, we're going to be focusing on one that's really seeing a lot of change, the legal world.
Yeah, definitely.
And specifically how AI is, changing up the jobs in it.
Absolutely.
We're basing our deep dive today on Texto Pegado, which is a resource from MCHM Abogados in Almeria, Spain.
Yeah. So for anyone listening who wants to really get a solid understanding of this, but wants to do it quickly and, not spend hours reading through legal documents, we're going to kind of break down, the key points from this piece for you. So just a little bit of background. MCHM Abogados is a firm based in Almeria.
Okay.
Their address is Calle Santiago Vergara 20.
Got it.
And they can be reached at 950-106-453.
Oh.
Or if it's an emergency, 674-21-65-5-9.
Got it.
And their email is info@mchmabogados.us.
Perfect.
Their office is open Monday to Thursday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then Fridays, 8 to 3. They offer a whole range of legal services all over Spain.
Yeah, what I think is so interesting here is that we're looking at how a well-established firm like this is actually analyzing the way this technology is impacting their own field.
Exactly.
Our mission for this deep dive is to really, like you said, distill, their analysis into the biggest changes that AI is bringing about in legal jobs.
Right.
Both the exciting new things,
right,
but also some of the potential challenges that come with that.
Absolutely.
So why don't we kick things off by looking at how AI is, starting to handle some of the more routine tasks in the legal profession.
Okay.
What does that actually look like?
Yeah.
Practically speaking.
Yeah. So the material from the firm really emphasizes that AI tools, things like document management systems, or even software that can look at, past data and try to predict outcomes.
Okay.
Those are now able to handle a lot of the very repetitive, high-volume work that used to be done manually.
Yeah.
And, think about it. Any major legal case, there are mountains and mountains of documents.
That's crazy.
AI can process and analyze that information so much faster and with, a really high level of accuracy.
It's a game changer.
Yeah. And it's not just about speed, though.
Okay.
It completely changes the cost structure of doing something like due diligence.
Okay.
Which could potentially make it easier for smaller firms or even, lead to new legal tech companies that specialize in this stuff.
That's a really interesting point about the cost structure changing.
Yeah.
So, for the actual people working in law, the lawyers, the paralegals, what does this automation really mean for them right now?
Well, they say that the main benefit is that it frees up these legal professionals from a lot of the more tedious and time-consuming tasks.
It makes sense.
Instead of, poring over documents for hours and hours or doing basic case research, they can spend more time on things that really require human expertise, like, developing a really complex legal strategy or giving clients personalized advice or, figuring out tricky legal problems.
Right.
It's basically about letting AI take care of the groundwork so that people can focus on higher level thinking.
Yeah. It sounds like it's more about augmenting human capabilities than just straight up replacing jobs.
Yeah.
Like, Texto Pegado also goes into a more, I'd say, complex area. AI being used to choose and evaluate personnel in legal firms.
Right.
This seems like kind of a big deal.
It is, and it's definitely something we need to look at carefully.
Yeah.
What they're talking about is how AI algorithms are starting to be used to, look at job applications, conduct those first screening interviews automatically.
Interesting.
And even assess how employees are performing in the legal setting.
Like automated screening interviews. How advanced are those systems?
Yeah.
What are they even looking for?
Well, they can analyze all sorts of things about an application, like the keywords people use on their resume, the language patterns they use, even facial cues from video interviews. And they're looking for correlations between those things and what's been considered successful in similar roles in the past.
Yeah.
And when it comes to employee performance, AI can track all kinds of data points about their output and activity.
It makes you wonder how they design these systems and what they decide is important to look at.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, this source material also brings up something even more sensitive, what they call algorithmic dismissals, and what that means for labor rights.
Right.
That sounds pretty worrying.
It is a big concern, and they're talking about this idea, which is becoming more and more common in some industries, of using AI to evaluate someone's job performance and then using that to help decide whether to let them go.
So you're saying an algorithm could be part of deciding whether someone loses their job.
Exactly.
So what kind of ethical and legal questions does that bring up in the legal profession?
Well, you immediately start to think about workers' rights and due process.
Right.
You know, if an AI system flags someone for possible dismissal based on its analysis, what options does that person have to find out why the AI made that assessment? And, to challenge it if they think it's wrong or unfair.
That's huge.
The human side of these decisions, like taking into account special circumstances or someone's potential to improve. That seems really important.
Absolutely. I mean, you'd want to know there's a good reason and a fair process if you're going to lose your job.
Of course.
The Texto Pagado analysis really stresses that we need regulations to handle this right.
Yeah, they're definitely advocating for clear rules to protect employee rights, especially now that AI is playing a bigger role in the workplace.
Yeah.
They say it's crucial to be transparent about how these algorithms work.
Yeah.
And to have a real justification for any action that's based on AI.
Absolutely.
Not just blindly trusting a black box calculation.
Exactly.
Now, this whole shift towards AI in legal work also raises the question of training and retraining people.
If some tasks are going to be automated, what new skills do people in the legal profession need to learn to stay relevant?
Exactly. And this idea of upskilling and reskilling within the legal field is becoming really important.
Yeah.
Legal professionals need to understand how these AI tools actually work and how to use them effectively in their jobs.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about everyone becoming AI experts themselves.
Right.
It's more about being comfortable using these technologies to, make their own legal expertise even stronger.
So it's like learning to work with AI rather than competing against it.
Exactly. And that's a key difference.
Yeah.
The analysis emphasizes the need for, digital skills training programs and for policies that can help people adapt to these changing job roles.
Right.
The goal is to make this transition as smooth as possible.
Right.
And to, reduce the number of jobs that might be lost by giving people the skills they need in this new AI-driven world.
Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about the potential benefits here. Texto Pagado points out how AI can actually drive innovation and really boost competitiveness in the legal sector.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've been talking about some of the challenges, but they're also making it clear that AI opens up major opportunities for law firms. By using these technologies, firms can provide legal services way faster and more efficiently.
Right.
And that gives them a real edge over their competitors.
Yeah.
It's all about being able to manage those huge amounts of work and information more effectively, right?
Exactly. Being able to quickly and accurately analyze tons of data.
Right.
That lets firms offer legal advice that's really solid and evidence-based.
Yeah.
And that leads to better outcomes for clients.
Yeah.
This ability to offer data-driven insights, that's something that can make a big difference in a tough market.
So it's not just doing things faster.
Right.
It's about providing a higher quality service based on more in-depth analysis. We've talked about the ethical and regulatory stuff a little, but Texto Pagado really hammers home the need for a comprehensive framework to govern how AI is used in law.
Yeah, they see this as a really crucial point. As AI becomes a bigger part of the legal world, we need to establish clear ethical guidelines and solid rules to make sure it's being used responsibly.
According to their analysis, what are the main things these frameworks should focus on?
Well, they're really emphasizing the need to use AI responsibly and to make sure things are fair and equitable in all these AI-driven processes, whether it's hiring, evaluating performance, or even how legal services are delivered to clients.
Makes sense.
And they say transparency is essential.
Yeah.
If people are going to trust these technologies, they need to understand how the algorithms work.
It sounds like a tough balancing act. Using the power of AI, but also making sure we're protecting important principles in our legal system and in our workplaces.
Definitely.
So if we take everything into account, what's the overall picture here? Based on this Texto Pagado analysis, what's the big impact of AI on the legal job market?
Okay.
And what do you think the future holds?
Well, they're basically saying that the legal sector is going through a massive transformation, a lasting transformation.
Yeah.
And we're seeing this kind of two-sided situation.
Okay.
You have all this exciting potential with automation becoming more efficient and coming up with new ways to innovate in the legal field. But at the same time, we have to think about the ethical side of things. And we need to be prepared for potential job losses. We have to be smart about regulations and be ready to adapt.
So it's not really a question of whether AI will have an impact.
Exactly.
It's more about how well the industry can handle this shift. How responsible can they be?
Exactly.
Their analysis suggests that the people and firms who are proactive about this, the ones who are willing to learn and adapt their ways of working, those are the ones who are going to do well in this new legal landscape.
Absolutely.
It's about being forward-thinking and being flexible when it comes to technology.
Definitely.
I think this deep dive into what MCHM Abogados had to say about AI's impact on legal jobs has been incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
It's clear that this isn't just some future thing.
This
is happening right now.
Absolutely.
And it's something that needs our attention and some serious planning.
Absolutely. And considering how fast things are changing, it really makes you think, what can people in the legal field and the whole industry itself, what can they do right now to make sure this integration of AI is successful and fair?
That's a great question to think about.
Yeah.
So now that we've kind of explored the basics with Texto Pagado, maybe you, our listeners, can start looking at specific examples of legal tech innovations. Or, dive into the discussions about what skills will be needed in the legal profession going forward.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.